You can join the toast from Zoom. It's more of an intimate thing this year, my mom wrote. That was her message the day before what should have been their 35th wedding anniversary celebration. I replied with one word, noted. Then I picked up my phone, opened the Open Table app, and canceled the luxury group reservation I had paid for 2 months ago. A private dining room, premium wine pairing, multi-course menu, for a party of 14. I had footed the bill quietly. As always, the reservation was a surprise gift. I had planned everything, sent emails to my parents' closest friends, organized transportation, even prepaid the corkage fee. It was my way of showing up, of proving that no matter how excluded they made me feel, I still cared, that I still tried. Apparently, trying wasn't enough. Apparently, I wasn't intimate enough. The phone rang at exactly 7:42 p.m. They turned us away, my dad shouted, not even saying hello. The restaurant says the reservation was canceled. Our name's not on the list. We're standing here with everyone. What the hell is going on? His voice was laced with outrage, as if he hadn't spent years downplaying my existence. As if I were the one humiliating him, not the other way around. I took a breath and replied calmly. You asked for intimacy. I honored that. Then I hung up. I didn't check my phone again. I stepped out onto my balcony, let the cool night breeze brush over my skin, and listened to the faint hum of the city, laughter from restaurant patios, the gentle clink of glasses. Somewhere across town, my parents and their favorite people were likely still standing outside a five-star venue in formal wear, wondering how the night had unraveled. They wouldn't realize until later that I had canceled it. They might guess, but they wouldn't be sure. And that ambiguity, that doubt, felt like the first power I'd ever had in this family. They had made it clear for years. I was useful when I was quiet and generous. A wallet in the shape of a son. I wasn't invited to decisions, only expected to fund them. And when I finally stopped, I became cold, distant, ungrateful. So when they told me, with sterile politeness, to join via Zoom this year, after all the effort, after all the money, I took the hint. And then I gave them a gift they didn't expect. The next morning, a courier showed up at my apartment. Package for my name. Personal delivery. Signature required. The envelope was thick, made of that heavy, expensive kind of stationery my father always used when he wanted to make a point. Inside, one sentence, scrawled in his familiar, almost theatrical handwriting. You've crossed a line. But if you want to play grown-up games, let's play. Dad. Underneath that, a wire confirmation. $14,600. The exact amount I had paid for the reservation. It wasn't reimbursement. It was a shot across the bow. A message, we're even now. Which means I no longer owe you silence. Sometimes you don't realize you're the family servant until you stop serving. I never asked to be the dependable one. It just happened. I was the middle child, not the golden eldest, not the baby girl. Just the quiet one. The good kid who didn't talk back. The one who knew how to calculate APR by 15 and kept his nose out of everyone else's drama. And somehow, I became the one who paid. When my older brother Rick started his third business, a gourmet juice truck that never left our driveway, I was the one who invested, for $1,000 gone in 6 months. When my sister, Melanie, had her second baby and her boyfriend left her for a Twitch streamer, I was the one who covered the rent. Diapers, formula, pediatrician bills. That lasted 2 years. When mom and dad wanted to redo their kitchen, I didn't even blink. I transferred them $8,300 for new countertops and a double oven. Consider it a gift, I said. You've done so much for us. That was the joke of it all. I actually believed that. That helping them would eventually buy me a seat at the table. That one day, I'd stop being just the helper and become someone they valued. It wasn't even about the money. It was the tone. The way dad used to say, he's good for it, when the bill came. The way mom said, you know how generous you are. I wish your brother had your sense of responsibility. Only ever when she wanted something. The way no one ever said thank you. Just, I knew you'd come through. I told myself for years that this was just what families did. That I was being petty for even noticing. That it was noble to keep giving, even if no one acknowledged it. Because if I stopped, if I pulled back, who would pick up the slack? I still remember when I paid the deposit for that anniversary dinner. I was on my lunch break. I sat in my car and transferred the funds without hesitation. It wasn't even a question in my mind. That's what I did. That's who I was. But something had started shifting around that time. It wasn't dramatic. No betrayal. Just cracks. The kinds of small moments that build into something undeniable if you pay attention. Like when Melanie's daughter called me Uncle Wallet. Or when I overheard Rick complaining to my dad that I was stingy lately because I hadn't paid his overdue registration fee for a startup incubator. Or when Mom laughed at dinner and said, "You'd make a great butler. Always 2 steps behind. Always cleaning up the mess." They weren't joking. Not really. I realized then that I wasn't family. I was a resource. A faucet. A bank that never overdraft. Only resented when I dared to pause. When I confronted my dad about the Zoom toast message, just to ask, "Was this really your idea?" He didn't even look up from his newspaper. He said, flatly, "You're single. It didn't make sense to pay for a plus one when it's just you. We're trying to keep things warm. Focused. Warm. Right. Focused on people who mattered." That's when I saw it clearly. They didn't want me to celebrate with them. They wanted me to fund the celebration. But attend? Be present? Share in the warmth? Not necessary. Not intimate enough. That's why I canceled the reservation. Not out of pettiness. Not even revenge. But clarity. They made the rules. They said it was intimate this year. So I honored that. They could toast each other from their living room. No fine dining. No red wine. No foie gras. Just them. In the warmth they'd so carefully curated, without me. I knew the fallout would come. What I didn't expect was the money. When that wire transfer landed, $14,600, I stared at the confirmation slip for a long time. I know my father. That wasn't reimbursement. That wasn't making things right. That was chess. His way of saying, "We don't need your money anymore. So now what are you worth?" He was ready for war. And I realized, with a strange calm, so was I. 3 days passed before anyone said a word. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a passive-aggressive gift from my sister Melanie, which was rare. She usually sent those like clockwork. But silence, in my family, wasn't peace. It was prelude. So when the group chat lit up Thursday morning with family dinner at 6. Mandatory. No excuses. I knew what was coming. I arrived early. Not because I was eager, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes first, before the performance started. My father was already seated at the head of the table. Navy sweater. Slippers. A glass of wine he hadn't touched yet. He always waited to raise it. My mother stood in the kitchen, slicing lemons with surgical precision. When I entered, she glanced up, then down again. "You're early," she said flatly. "Just like old times," I replied. She didn't smile. One by one, they arrived. Rick, in his ridiculous leather jacket, still pretending to be an entrepreneur. Melanie, baby-free for once, face already twisted into something performative. Uncle Harry, who always showed up for free food but never picked a side. And then their new friend group. The couples they played tennis with, drank wine with, gossiped with. The ones I had booked that entire luxury dinner for. All present. All awkward. The meal was plated. Roast chicken. Herb potatoes. 2 kinds of wine. A celebration. Just like always, just smaller. Just more intimate. Once everyone was seated, my father raised his glass. "To 35 years of marriage," he said, smiling just a little too wide. "To family, to loyalty, and to knowing who's really there for you." Every head turned toward me. I nodded, took a sip, and said nothing. The performance had begun. About halfway through the meal, Rick made his move. "So, bro," he said, "any reason you ghosted our parents' big night? Couldn't log into Zoom?" I looked at him. "Oh, I saw the message," I said calmly. "I just figured it wasn't my place." Melanie leaned in, feigning sweetness. "You're always so dramatic. You could have said something if you were hurt." I set my fork down. Was I supposed to be hurt? I thought you all wanted intimacy. That's why I canceled the dinner. There was a beat of silence. My mother's knife stopped cutting. My father's eyes narrowed. "You canceled the reservation?" he asked, his voice deceptively soft. "Sure did. Figured it didn't make sense to waste all that money on a room I wasn't invited to." The table stiffened. Someone coughed. Melanie let out a short, breathy laugh, like a glitch in a robot. My father wiped his mouth slowly, then folded his napkin and set it beside his plate. "Let's drop the act, shall we?" he said. "You felt slighted. You retaliated. We get it. But what you did, leaving 14 people standing outside like fools, that was childish. You embarrassed this family. I didn't look away. You embarrassed yourselves. I just stepped out of the way." "Oh, come on," Rick cut in. "You've always had a chip on your shoulder. You were handed everything. No kids, no spouse, no bills except your own, and you act like you're the victim. I laughed. For the first time that night, I really laughed. Everything. I repeated. Did you just say I was handed everything? I turned toward the guests, the so-called family friends. Did they tell you who paid for that dinner? The one you were all dressed up for. They froze. Rick paled slightly. Melanie shifted in her seat. I covered that reservation, I said. I organized it, paid for it, emailed you all reminders. 2 months in advance. You know how they thanked me. I turned to my mom. By asking me to stay home. But not directly, of course. That would have been too honest. Instead, they said it would be more intimate this year. That I could log into Zoom if I wanted. My mother opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. No, you don't get to speak yet. I stood. Let me be perfectly clear. I've paid for more things in this family than I can count. Birthdays, rent, medical bills, a new fridge, a trip to Italy for your anniversary 5 years ago. Remember that? I paid because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought, if I kept showing up, maybe one day you'd treat me like I belonged. Like I wasn't some defective son who chose the wrong job, the wrong path, the wrong life. I looked at Rick. I covered your third failed business launch. You said you'd pay me back. It's been 4 years. Then to Melanie. You said I was cold for not visiting the baby enough, while I was paying your rent during your divorce. And finally, I looked at my father. You sent me a check for $14,600. The exact amount I spent. You wanted to send a message. Now we're even. Right. He didn't answer. Good, I said. Then consider this my resignation. Melanie scoffed. You're not serious. Oh, I'm absolutely serious. I'm done. I'm not the bank anymore. I'm not the fixer. I'm not the afterthought you keep around because I'm useful. I walked toward the hallway, grabbing my coat. My mother finally found her voice. You're overreacting. This is a family disagreement. You're making a scene. I turned to her. This isn't a scene. This is an exit. Rick muttered. God, you're so dramatic. Better dramatic than delusional, I said. I was at the bottom of that ladder. Now I've chosen a different path. And I did. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and didn't look back. But that wasn't the end. The end came the next morning, when another envelope arrived. Different courier. Same handwriting. And this time, it wasn't a check. It was a legal document. My father had started proceedings to remove me from a joint family trust. A trust one had contributed to for 12 years. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about money. This was action. Silence used to feel like punishment. Now it felt like peace. The day after I received the legal notice from my father's lawyer, I sat on my balcony with a mug of black coffee and stared at it again. The clean white paper, the precise language, the signature that looked more like a brand than a name. Per mutual understanding, my name is hereby removed from all active decision-making related to the Martin Family Trust. Mutual understanding? That part almost made me laugh. I hadn't even known I was still listed as a trustee. I remembered the day they added me to the trust documents. I had just covered Rick's hospital bill after a motorcycle accident, and my father said, "You've earned some weight in the family." I should have known then what that meant. Weight, not respect. Responsibility, not voice. They added me because I was convenient. And now, without warning, they'd erased me for the same reason. My first instinct had been anger, a kind of visceral fire that wanted to erupt, scorch everything and everyone, drag them into the mess they created. But it didn't last. Instead, I felt light, weightless even. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding on to the hope of being included, of being seen, of being wanted. And now it was gone, replaced by something far more useful. Clarity. The call started 3 days later. First from Melanie. She didn't even mention the dinner. Just dove straight in. So, I just wanted to ask, are you still planning on helping with Ava's preschool tuition? Because the school emailed me, and it's due soon. I almost smiled. The audacity. No, I said. There was a pause. Sorry, what? I said no. I'm not helping with tuition. I'm not helping with anything. You can't be serious. Melanie, we haven't spoken in 2 years without you needing something. This is me being serious for once. But Ava loves you. Then tell her uncle name, wishes her well. I hope she learns about boundaries early. I hung up before she could weaponize the guilt. She tried again a day later, then stopped. Then came Rick. He didn't even call, just sent a Venmo request titled, Gas plus food plus biz emergency equals folded hands light skin tone. $850. Declined. 2 hours later, I got a string of messages. Bro, seriously? What happened to family helps family? This is so petty, man. Dad was right, you have a God complex. I didn't respond. I let his words sit there, bouncing against the void of my silence. For the first time, I wasn't performing. I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't trying to explain my worth. I was just gone. What they hadn't realized, and what I had, was how much of the machine I had kept running. I was the one who funded the holidays, the birthdays, the emergency plane tickets, the last-minute wedding venue deposit, the surprise baby shower gifts. Now, without me, the gears jammed. My mother tried next. A long, carefully composed email. We never meant to hurt you. We were just trying to create a celebration that felt balanced. If we went too far, I hope you'll forgive us. It's been a stressful year, and you've always been the one we rely on because we know you're strong. Stronger than the rest of us. Please come over for coffee. Just to talk. No drama. No drama. That line struck me. The same family that had iced me out of a celebration I paid for now wanted me back, as long as I didn't bring the mess they caused. I didn't respond. I opened a new tab instead, looked at apartments in cities 3 states away, started texting with a recruiter about an opportunity I'd been too afraid to pursue, a nonprofit CFO position with housing support and a clean break from everything I knew. For the first time, I wasn't just daydreaming about leaving. I was actually preparing to go. It took 2 weeks for someone to show up in person. Not my father, not my siblings. It was Kelly, Rick's wife. She stood at my doorstep, no makeup, hoodie pulled tight around her shoulders. Eyes already red before she spoke. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said. I don't know what's happening to this family. I let her in, poured her tea, sat across from her on the same couch where I had processed every insult, every manipulation, every invisible bruise from the last decade. You're not the problem, she said, but you've been made into one. Rick, he's unraveling. I told him he needed to apologize, but he's too proud. Too scared, maybe. She looked up at me, face pained. I don't blame you for leaving, she said. Honestly, I envy you. I believed her. Kelly had always been the quiet one, the one who saw the rot, but didn't have the tools to name it, much less challenge it. We talked for almost an hour. About Ava. About how family can become a system, and systems don't reform just because one person screams. When she left, she hugged me, tighter than I expected. It was the first genuine affection I'd felt from anyone related to my brother. And I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Not because I missed them, but because I realized I didn't. By week 4, the silence returned. No more emails. No more calls. The group chat I had once paid to keep active, full of vacation polls and holiday menus, was quiet. I imagined their dinners now, short on food, shorter on joy. Maybe they'd figure things out. Maybe they wouldn't. But I wouldn't be there either way. It's been 7 months since the night I walked out of that dinner. I haven't spoken to my father since. I hear updates secondhand, mostly from Kelly, sometimes through vague social media posts from distant cousins. I don't seek them out, but the algorithm still knows we share DNA. It drips them into my feed like digital ghosts. Rick tried texting me again 2 months ago. Just one word. Mom. That was it. No context. No request. No apology. I didn't reply. Later I found out she had been hospitalized briefly. Nothing critical, just dehydration and stress. Likely brought on by trying to hold together a web of codependency she helped weave for decades. Part of me felt something. Guilt? Maybe. But it passed quickly. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something that took me too long to learn. Caring doesn't mean sacrificing your self-respect. I sent a bouquet, signed the card with one line. Wishing you health and clarity. Your son. I didn't put my name. If she didn't recognize the handwriting, the message wasn't meant for her anyway. I live in another city now. Smaller. Quieter. Fewer legacy expectations. I work for a nonprofit that provides financial counseling to young adults. It's funny, in a way. I spent most of my life bleeding money for people who never said thank you, and now I teach strangers how not to end up like me. It's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. My apartment is small but bright. I have plants now. They don't demand anything but sunlight and water, and they give back in green. It's a better trade than I ever got at home. On weekends, I take long walks with no destination. I cook real meals. I have a friend group built not on obligation or history, but on shared values. No one texts me only when they need a favor. Last month, I met someone. Someone who asked me, halfway through dinner, what was your family like growing up? And for the first time in my life, I didn't freeze or flinch or change the subject. I just answered, complicated, loving, in a conditional way. But I've learned to love myself unconditionally. That helps. They nodded. No pity, just presence. That's when I knew I was okay. Sometimes I still have dreams about my father. In them, I'm standing at the end of a long dining table. He's at the other end, smiling with his glass raised. Everyone's watching me, waiting for me to toast. But in the dream, I don't raise my glass. I walk away, and no one follows. And I wake up feeling peace. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can love your family. You can understand them. You can grieve them. But you do not have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Not anymore.